come to Israel with a single message. You're not alone.
In other words, there are a lot of risks. Some of the risks are right now within the war itself, and that concerns, for instance, worrying a little bit probably that as Israel continues its campaign, that it may undermine U.S. interests. Some of those interests, as we've seen over the last several years, has been the attempt to court moderate and Arab regimes and monarchies.
I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you.
And there is the possibility that if the war really widens not only to include Gaza, but maybe the West Bank, that it will not only alienate Arab allies, but could potentially lead to a breaking of relations with Israel, could set back whatever hopes that the U.S. had for a broader regional peace.
I want to say to the people of Israel, their courage, their commitment, their bravery is stunning.
You know, I don't think that the U.S. is going to get involved militarily, but again, I think the fact that you have the U.S. naval presence now in the Mediterranean, for some analysts suggests that the U.S. isn't quite certain that Israel's capable of dealing with a two-front war, and that the U.S. needs to stand by to protect it. And if you're going to do that, that always opens up the risk of U.S. involvement militarily in what's taking place.
No higher priority than the release and safe return of all these hostages. But I caution this while you feel that rage. Don't be consumed by it.
The restraint call, I believe, is designed to essentially remind Israel about the Geneva Conventions and to do its best to, conduct a campaign that minimizes civilian casualties. The other piece of it, though, is the humanitarian aid. And that will be seen as having greater urgency after the bombing or the bomb that destroyed the hospital. There's no love for Hamas among, the frontline states. So I don't think there's going to be any tears spilt over, whether Hamas gets its comeuppance. On the other hand, there is, a lot of sensitivity and concern for the Palestinians. And depending on how the war goes, it could very well mean that Saudi Arabia has, no stomach for thinking about a peace deal with Israel. Everybody's focused on the military and the humanitarian. At the end of the day, there are no military or humanitarian solutions to what are fundamentally political problems. And more importantly, for the Biden administration, their fundamental concerns are Ukraine and China. And right now, this is, hate to put it in these terms, but it's a huge distraction. And the fear is that, this once again will disrupt, as we see, the possibility of fully supporting Ukraine or making sure that its China strategy is up and running. And so, I think one of the things the Biden administration would like to do is make sure that there's moderation here.
It is worth saying, Biden apparently managed to get the Israelis to allow the Egyptians to allow aid into Gaza during the course of his visit. So I suppose that's a good thing without reservation, but it's not a big thing. I think that governments and political leaders, when they enter wars, they think that they're going to somehow produce a decisive outcome. And if we look at Middle Eastern wars of the last 50 years, that almost never happens. There's a couple of examples a long time ago where there were some decisive outcomes. 67 is one, but I can't think of many other examples. So typically, it's a kind of a state of mutual exhaustion Israel, Egypt, and Jordan are three of the largest recipients of American foreign aid in the world. Israel is number one, Egypt is number two, and Jordan is right up there. The militaries of these countries are completely dependent upon aid direct from U.S. taxpayers to purchase the weapons, including the weapons that the Israelis are using against Gaza right now. But they don't accept the assumptions, the guidance, or the prerogative, the priorities of Washington. So that train seems to be moving in one direction, and it's not a good direction from the perspective of the Biden White House, I would say.
Israel will be safe, secure, Jewish, and democratic state.
Mr. President, what is your red line that would prompt U.S. military involvement